How's everybody doing? Good. Packed house. All right. So obviously we got a busy day here today. We got to get going. We've got a great team coming into our place here this weekend, and we got a lot of preparation to do. So certainly a complex team. I would say they do a lot of things really well. They got a lot of great players. They really, all three phases are really pretty dynamic. So I think it's important to understand that special teams will be a critical part of this game. They do a great job of coaching and playing. They got good players, and really, kind of with Fossil, just have a consistency there in special teams with some of the things that they do that they can cause you a lot of problems, from gadgets to fakes. Obviously the punter can throw. So, there's just some different things there that they do that are really, really an issue. So we got a lot of work to do there. And, offensively, for us, we certainly got, our work cut out for us dealing with the front. These guys got some really good players up front, some dynamic guys that can be very disruptive, and certainly some really good players in the back end, too, that can kind of lock you up. Obviously, Wade's doing a great job with those guys and mixing some of the coverages between man and zone, but really just doing a good job of complementing each other in both the front and the back end. And then, certainly what we talked about before, obviously this offense is, very dynamic. Coach McVay is doing a great job of dispersing the ball, getting it out. Goff's doing a really good job of kind of getting the ball out to their go-to players. They got some dynamic guys all the way across the board. So, it's a big challenge. But, it's a great thing about us is that we get to go back to work, kind of grind it out here today and put the work in this week and go compete on Sunday. So should be a good work week for us, a good opportunity for us to get better and obviously go play a really good team in the league. So we're excited about it.
Following on the offense part of it, they're averaging 35 points a game. You guys haven't scored 35 in a game this year, so the obvious question would be, how do you keep up?
Sure. Well, you know what? I mean, I think, again, stats, all that stuff, it doesn't really matter for us. It's just we got to do what we can to defend what they do, do it really well from that standpoint, try to, keep them from not scoring 35 points a game. That'd probably be our starting point from that standpoint. I would say, on the flip side, we got to just take advantage of every single drive we have, try to do a good job of converting and keeping the drives alive and getting down. And when we get down to the red area, we got to score. Certainly, I think a lot of teams that have played the Rams have been in that similar situation and haven't been able to get it done. And we're certainly understand that that's a huge challenge for us to handle that. But from that standpoint, we just got to go play the game.
Everybody knows obviously it's very good and very explosive, but beyond the personnel, can you just explain why it's so innovative? Like, what is unique about it that they do that other teams don't?
Sure. Absolutely. And I think, I've known Coach McVay for a long time, and I think he's doing a great job with that unit and what they're doing. I think sometimes the word innovative in the game of football is always an interesting word because, I think it's very cyclical. I think things come back up. I think there's a lot of stuff that comes from the college game that comes up. I think there's a lot of stuff from the NFL that goes down to college. And I think there's things that just maybe trend and repeat, but maybe look a little bit different than maybe they have in the past. So there's certainly been a lot of teams that go up tempo in the past. There's a lot of teams that kind of go on the ball. There's a lot of teams that run 11 personnel or, one back, one tight end, three wide receiver type personnel groupings. There's a lot of teams in the past that have done things where the quarterback's checking to the line of scrimmage or the coordinator's checking through the headset, until the play clock runs out at the, at the 15-second mark. So all those things are certainly things that teams have done. They're just doing it really well. They're just doing it at a high level. They're operating at a high level, and I think they've got good pieces in place that are all working together right now and kind of on the same page. So I think one of the big things with this team, I would say that kind of in that mode of an offensive unit that, they've done a really good job with is sticking with the run game. I think when you do that and you can run the ball along with the dynamic pass game. Now they use a lot of play action based off of the run game to kind of get those chunk yardages downfield. But that run game is, it's really good. And he does a great job with it. And certainly Gurley is a guy that runs those plays extremely well. He's fast. He's big. He has great vision. So he sees the holes. He can make those dynamic cuts, get downhill, and get into the secondary pretty quick. So I think it's just from that standpoint, it's all working together really well.
Aaron Donald, it looks like as good as he is, he's even better. He's got 10 sacks in the last 5 games. How do you defend a guy like that playing next to him down in Sue? They just eat people up inside.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, obviously, they've got a lot of really good guys up front. I think the addition of Fowler is a whole other element that they've added with speed off the edge. Brockers is another guy who'll kind of be in a couple multiple different positions in there, whether it's a 3 technique, a 4-eye, a 4 or 5. I think Donald, just in general, is, he's a tremendous player. This guy's got explosiveness off the ball. He's got violent hands. He's got great change of direction, short space quickness. I think there's a lot of situations where he takes great advantage of either offensive linemen that underset him or overset him. He really kind of can read the offensive linemen when they set to the spot and try to put themselves in between the quarterback and the defender. He does a good job of manipulating those guys, moving them, maybe getting them to overset, countering back underneath, or getting them to underset, freezing them, and getting back to the edge. And his quickness just really allows him to be able to do that. And certainly now, with Sue inside and even with Fowler on the edge, and like I said, with Brockers, it's hard to kind of distribute help everywhere. And there's just those guys are taking advantage of those opportunities where they do become one-on-one in those situations, and they've been able to capitalize them in a big way. And the other part of it is with that front, they do a good job of also attacking the ball. So they're getting a lot of turnovers in that situation, which has, been critical for them in their success, getting the turnovers, and whether they're scoring on defense or getting it back to that offense, it's certainly a problem from that standpoint. So it's a big challenge with those guys up front.
Wide receivers that you're familiar with for various reasons. Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods is probably one of the more underrated guys in the league for a while now. How much more difficult is it? Does it change things when a team doesn't have like a 1A, but they have, like you mentioned, so many different weapons that can hurt you?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, with kind of how they're all working together right now, it's very difficult to defend. Cooks is, this guy is pure, true speed now. You want to see a guy that can just roll and it gets faster as he goes down the field. Great professional, guy that works hard every single day, really works at his craft, understands routes, route concepts, coverages. He can get in and out of his break very quickly. He can get vertical very quickly. He's a great catch and run player too, so they can get the ball to him quickly and let him kind of find space and make a lot out of nothing. So he's a dynamic guy. He's a true team guy. He's a really good player, and obviously you can see why it fits for them in that system, and he's made some big plays for him downfield. Again, I would say just in general with Woods, guy that I've had to defend here before in the past, who I think in this system is really just getting an opportunity to run some really good routes. He's a very good route runner, and I would say they're putting him both inside and outside, based on some of the injuries they've had, and giving him an opportunity to run those intermediate routes where he's so good in and out of his breaks. I mean, he can run the quick breaking routes, the shorts, the underneath routes right now, and he also has the ability to go vertical, but kind of that intermediate range where he can break the in route, the out route, be able to run the over route, and kind of just be able to stem the DBs that are trying to cover him, use their leverage against them, and then break in and out with his quickness at the top of the route. He's really good wide receiver, and I think they're just, Sean's doing a good job of using him in the proper way based on where he's lined up. So, that's kind of the combination with those two. It becomes a problem.
I've asked you a lot about Matthew Stafford lately. I'm just curious, with players who are experienced or pretty good players, do you learn a lot about them with kind of how they handle adversity or the down parts? And if so, what have you learned from him just in kind of what he's dealt with the past few weeks?
You know what? I think you absolutely learn a lot about everybody, coaches, players, all of that as you go through a football season, good or bad. Just to be honest with you, through the courses of the different seasons that I've had, whether they've been successful seasons, and even some of the seasons that have been, the most successful ones I've ever had have been some of the harder ones I've ever had too, So I think that's the great part of this game. That's what I love about this game is, the values that it teaches, the things that, you got to go to work every single day and grind it out. It doesn't really matter what happened the day before. You got to pick yourself up and go to work. And that sort of mental toughness and, that sort of drive to be successful is something that you just, that's why we're in this position. That's why we're all in, this level. If we didn't have that, then we wouldn't be here. So I think the great thing about the players and the coaches is that we do find out more about that every single day. Those guys that just are determined to be tough and go work harder and understand that they got to improve and they got to get better. And it's not always going to be perfect, but we got to try to make it right, more than not, so that we give ourselves a chance to win. And that's definitely something that this team, like I've said many times, this is a tough team now. It's a mentally tough team. It's a blue-collar team. That's what we want to be. I think that's what this city is, and I think that's what we're trying to be. It may not be perfect, and we understand that, and we got a long way to go, and we're trying to get better every single week, and we got to try to string it together with a little bit more consistency. But the one thing for sure is these guys, they'll grind it out every day, and as a coach, that's what I'm looking for. And certainly, the quarterback position is no different. I mean, Stafford is one of the toughest guys we have. I mean, this guy just comes to work every single day. It's great as a coach because, you just, hey, look, we got to get better. Here's this. Let's look at this. Let's talk about these plays. Let's talk about these players. What do you think about this from a game plan standpoint? How do you want to attack this? And you can have that and you can go to work that way. That's what you want to do.
You thrust Mike Ford right into a pretty prominent role right off the practice squad. It's a big challenge for a rookie corner. Just wondered what you've seen from him. Seemed like a big jump in performance from week 1 to week 2 for him. Just what you like about what he's given you.
Yeah, again, I think that's part of the process of what we do maybe behind the scenes a little bit that, obviously everybody only sees Sundays, but we're trying to evaluate these guys every single day, and I would say a lot of it goes back to training camp. It's real important for us during that time period to get a good evaluation of our players so that we can try to develop those guys and maybe kind of look, somewhere down the road 2 or 3 months and say, hey, this guy, if he keeps developing the way he is, or we see a skill set that maybe we can put him out there in a situation and see how it goes, kind of see how he's come along. And I thought at the time when we first activated and brought him up and had a role for him, which was really more special teams, I would say at the time, and put him in a situation where we needed him to make a play. He made a pretty big play for us in a field position battle and was able to kind of get down there and down the ball. So, I think he just made the most of his opportunity at that point, and, he just tries to keep building on that. Certainly he has a long way to go. There's a lot of learning, and, this is a whole different level of football, and there's a different level of competition and players, and, a lot of learning from that standpoint, not only from a defensive scheme standpoint or a special teams standpoint, but just about the other players that as a young player or a rookie player, first or second year player, you're still learning about guys that, maybe have been in the league 8 or 9 years. That's a lot to catch up on as far as that's concerned from experience from a standpoint. So I think it's a guy, he works really hard, but he's trying to do everything that we're asking him to do. He's got a long way to go, but right now we just keep pushing forward with it and see what it looks like. But we have some other guys that are in the same boat. Some other guys that we're kind of rolling in there too and taking a look at that have opportunities based on whatever it might be, whether it's how we need to play that game that particular week, which has a lot to do with it, and not every week is the same, so it's different based on our opponent, or could be an injury situation that has forced somebody into action, and it's up to them at that point to make the most of their opportunity. I think he's done a good job of that so far.
It's been 2 weeks since you guys have really had a full practice because of last week's short week. In a business that's so routine-based, how do you get the team kind of back into the swing of things today?
Yeah, good. Absolutely. That's kind of last week's. It's a great week from that standpoint. It's an exciting week, but sometimes as players and as coaches, you love the routine. You love kind of just every day being what it's supposed to be, and I think that's good for us to get back in that mindset as soon as possible. That was something that we tried to do starting on Monday. Kind of get back into it and have a normal Monday, a normal Tuesday, and then obviously a really good Wednesday, which is today, and go out. And, we're at that time of the year where some of the things we can do practice-wise are very limited. We're starting to run out of time with some of that stuff, and we got to take advantage of today and know how important it is that we're still trying to work on things like fundamentals and techniques and consistency and in pad level and hand placement and footwork at the line of scrimmage. And the guys know that, plus on top of that have the challenge of trying to get ready to play against an outstanding team. So I think that's all kind of just helps everybody dial in and focus back into, what is our routine, what has it been in the past, and, the more we can get into the routine and be consistent with that, then I think that transfers into our production out on the field and then our production, hopefully on Sunday. So it's a great day to get that going. Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, Matt.